Okay, so it seems
All
like
right,
people are.
Yuri, welcome everyone to this first community mentoring session. Um, Yuri here is going to share with you 10 things he wished he knew when he started Acumatica development. Um, Again, this is supposed to be a very interactive session, so you guys feel free to throw out questions, share your experiences, etc. And with that, Yuri, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, couple of words about myself and about this presentation. So, 10 things I wish I knew when I started. So I started Acumatica development after being a technical lead in one company. So it will be session addressing mostly those who are senior developers who want to start Acumatica, who want to start career as Acumatica developers. So that's basically something that I missed as C# full stack developer who had to switch to Acumatica development. And couple of promotion, like I'm CTO and co-founder of company AcuPower LTD. If you are Acumatica developer and you don't know about this blog, then you losing a lot. Again, I'm Acumatica MVP 4 times already, and I was developer of the year in 2019. And now, point number one, which took a bit of time to understand for me, is convention over configuration. And what is convention over configuration? If you do Acumatica development, you basically know that if you want to modify behavior of graph, you say something like this graph extension. If you want to create new graph, you write your code as new graph. So basically, just write it. And I want to highlight on the value of this convention over configuration. It's important in Acumatica, and I noticed some people who start Acumatica development, they ignore usage of documentation. And I want to encourage everybody, if you start with Acumatica development, definitely go through courses. They have a lot of conventions, and if you follow them, your life as a Acumatica developer will be much easier. It will not be easy, but it will be much easier, because those conventions, this is something like every family has a kind of agreement. Here we put forks, here we put knives, and this helps every family to stay tuned and organized. Second point, which I wish I knew, was DnSpy existence. So what is DnSpy? Basically, if to go to Google, and if you type DnSpy, you can find this tool, and this tool is very efficient for debugging of the compiled code of Acumatica. And well, not only Acumatica, but in scope of Acumatica, that's become really important. So how to, like a bit later, I will show how to debug with DnSpy. And another point, I will make some changing a bit. So installation logs. If to look on Acumatica, like Clear Acumatica has, as usually, those pages: data, database, device hub, files, and portal. And once you will install single Acumatica, it will create additional folders. And I want to demonstrate what it will look like. So before I continue, I will make a screenshot of this folder of kind of clean Acumatica. And now I'm going to execute installer Acumatica config. And while it is executed, so now it is kind of And you see one thing which it did, like if we compare what we have on this screenshot and what we have now, it created file log.txt. So if you have issues with local installation of Acumatica, you can always check what kind of issues you may have. And here you can also open it. It tracks plenty of information. If you look here, exactly it says that 1888, as here it's shown, trying to return application with elevated account, and Acumatica configuration wizard started. And for me, that is important, especially for cases when I have some PowerShell scripts or bat files for Acumatica deployment. This log.txt is quite important tool. And if you going to install Acumatica, this log.txt will be updated with steps, like of what it is going to make. And let it run for a bit. I'm not going to install Acumatica instance for now, but I will show folder structure of other, like when we have Acumatica instance configured. And by the way, I want to show another. Yeah, here we have information of log.txt. So like here, it tracks configuration mode. It tracks which database used, which server name, instance name, and some other stuff. So if you cannot install Acumatica and you want to understand what kind of reason prevents from doing that, I would recommend to go to log.txt file and check what kind of information it has. And now I want to highlight another folders which are created: snapshots, temporary Asp files, and this is instance which I created, instance of Acumatica training 0. I'm going to close this as I don't want to explain much about that. And here, and I also go to this one. In my Visual Studio, I created a couple of Acumatica projects, like as order entry X DLL0, as order entry X DLL2, and I have, I believe, question for everybody in the group. How do you think in which locations I will find compiled DLL for SO order entry X DLL2? And how many folders of Acumatica it happened to be? Give your guesses.
It's possibly in bin debug of the compiler itself, and also in the bin folder of the instance.
Okay, good. Which other locations? I don't say it will be 3 or 4 or 5, but which other locations?
And also, I give in the project debug, if you set the output file just directly to the bin folder of the, I had this issue right the other day. Put the project bin folder gonna be there and won't be any place else, I guess. If you are not adding to project, I mean, in the Acumatica, it's not inside the customization package.
Okay, I mean, like that's correct. I mean more about when Acumatica uses some DLL, like Acumatica instance, where it will put this file or DLL. Like you're correct about bin debug. I definitely can agree on project, but in scope of Acumatica, where else it will be placed, I want to show you. So I will do file search, and I will be looking specifically for this class. and like it will find for me PDB. It will go, of course, through plenty of other stuff, like as was mentioned in bin folder. But besides that, some other folders will be mentioned.
And Yuri, this is assuming your customization package is bound to the project, right? If it is not, I guess it's going to be totally different.
Yes, yes. If it is bound to project and if Acumatica using that DLL by itself. So as you see, it is put in bin folder. If like this is kind of interesting, if you create dump of Acumatica process, then that specific class will be in the dump. So this is like we can skip. But what else? We have folder temporary Asp files, then name of the instance, and you can see kind of different versions which we have of DLL. And where else we have another folder, instance name and validation. So basically 3 different locations. Like you can see here more instances, but I would insist on 3 different instances. So basically your DLL will be placed in customization instance training validation. It will be put in temporary Asp files, and it will be put in bin folder. And what is kind of practical value of this information? If you lack working space on your development machine, potentially the way what you can do, you can go on your temporary Asp files and potentially you can delete it or clean it, because like for example here I have half gigabyte on this version of Acumatica, and if I would do active development for this version, it will be a couple of gigabytes size. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. And what what another issues as a developer I face time from the time, because there are a lot of different DLLs. I have a situation when there is a conflict between what I developed and what published. It does not happen often, but let's say if I develop for single version of Acumatica for half a year, some kind of heavy project, I've been in cases when like I rebuild, I refresh website, and the changes from DLL does not appear in the system on Acumatica version. And I was able to kind of get those changes only after I cleaned up temporary Asp files folder. That is something that I would say took some good amount of time for me, and I wasn't able to understand why.
Sorry, basically you are saying we can safely delete the temporary Asp files and there's not going to happen anything, right? Is what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
You can safely delete it. Of course, if you will delete it very often, Acumatica instance will not stop running. Like, for example, here we have this instance, and I created code specifically for sales orders page. So let me open it. And here we have, but I will show, I want also to highlight kind of side effect you may have if you delete those files often. But before I'll do that, let me. So here we have kind of button 1, button 2. This is button 4, which I have for experiments. So basically here we have one DLL. Here we have like C# code for another DLL. It is pretty much the same. Main purpose was to get a button in the form. And let's say I go here to temporary Asp files. This is instance which I'm using, so I'm deleting everything from here. It will take time. I need to elevate total commander for doing that. As you see, 8,000 files it has. And I need that in order to demonstrate some other features. So, do we have anybody from Kenzium with us already? Sorry, Naveen didn't come.
No, Naveen isn't on. And yeah, Naveen's not on.
Okay. I'm sad. I wanted to share something for him. Okay, 2000. So this folder is pretty heavy by quantity of files, put it this way. Okay, I see some message in the chat. It says, I don't see what it says. Oh, I see. Temporary Asp, temp Asp directories, yeah?
Oh, we might have Naveen on. I might have just forced him on. Naveen, are you on?
Hi, Chris.
Oh, Naveen. Oh, Naveen.
Hi, Yuri.
Sorry, I didn't know the system was going to actually call you. Yuri was just wondering if you were on and missed you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for adding.
Yeah, Naveen. I will show how I debug Kenzium DLLs if I don't have source code. And I'm going to show it soon.
Sure.
So we're getting closer to this.
Maybe while you're waiting, would you say a bit more about what you use PowerShell for? Oh, all right. We're all done.
You know, I'm using PowerShell for execution of automatic installation of Acumatica, but I'm not ready to elaborate on that. Maybe another meeting we can make, another call I can make. But basically, if we want to automate installation of Acumatica or restoration from backup or automated deployment of sandbox, this is when we use PowerShell. Just kind of official on the surface. See. So here we have almost no files. And now when I reload Acumatica instance, it takes time to reload. And I want to demonstrate, you see that size of this folder becomes bigger. 160 megabytes, 168, and it may increase more and more. So each time when you rebuild Acumatica, one of the reasons why loading of Acumatica after refresh or after rebuild of DLL becomes longer is because this folder, temporary Asp files, has additional content placed there. You know, it become 173 megabytes and so on. because Acumatica generates plenty of stuff which you may want to debug. And I want to show you what kind of information it has. So it has some C# files, which you not necessarily will be able to see. It has some DLL. You can look, watch through .pic, but I prefer DnSpy. Okay. So plenty of DLLs will be generated. Then, by the way, this compiled. Open it in Notepad. Basically, you see some helpful information for Acumatica. Honestly, I have no idea why it does it, but plenty of stuff is generated. So, kind of another lesson: if you want to be efficient Acumatica developer, make sure that you have SSD hard drive. Because otherwise you will wait a lot of time on outcome. And here we have, for example, this is Acumatica folder file. Acumatica recently added a numerics library. It have data sync DLL. Honestly, I have no idea why all of this is put here, but let's say I want to debug with help of DnSpy this specific line. So I will close .pic. This is a wonderful tool again, but I want to use DnSpy. So DnSpy, will execute it. It have some decompilation, and here I'm looking for this guy. I'm going to, sorry. And just so we have it put in bin folder, and we have put it in this folder. So let's let's imagine I don't have a source code of it, and I'm using now temporary folder. And I'm taking this. And basically here I can see the source code of it, and I can put a breakpoint. Now I do debug attached to process. I'm not sure if I executed that. I need to execute it as admin. So I need to close it. Run as administrator, yes. And here I do this file open from here. I'm taking this DLL, and again I put a breakpoint here. And now debug attached to process. Here I'm searching W3WP, and this ID is useless. Training 0, this one. I'm attaching to that, and it says running. I will not be able to debug simultaneously in C#, in Visual Studio, and in DnSpy, but that's something to like that's something to be aware of. And let me go here. We see test DLL2. So I click on test DLL2 button. And when we will come here, it should be triggered here. Maybe I will need to refresh this one more time.
I've noticed that the first time after attaching to a
Okay.
process to debug, it takes a long time to load the first time. Do you know what's going on with that? That might be what's happening here.
Basically, additional stuff is put into this temporary Asp. Like in these temporary Asp files, it's you see it become bigger, 224 megabytes. What basically happens, as far as I was able to find out, Acumatica uses like Acumatica generates additional code, and I assume .NET framework itself generates like it may use a tool which compiles some specific branches of code into machine code. Like there is a tool ngen which which transforms code which is in the in C# into machine executable code. That's my guess. But not only this. If to look in the web config, here we have plenty of other keys which can give us some kind of hint what happens, like auto update. Well, if to look, let's see, cache reload happens, which again takes time. Thread may get restarted and so on. So we are here, test DLL2. So I'm clicking on this button. And here we go. Here you see that we arrived here. And if to imagine that I don't have the source code of this, I still can debug what I don't have. Like I click on F10 and you see I can get even some variables, not all of them unfortunately, but I can get some variables here of what kind of happens in the system. So for example, here I get this variable and I see that this particular SO order, it has order type SO, order type new. So you can kind of debug what is in the system. And I'm clicking on F10. I believe because I'm using screen sharing and other stuff, that's takes time for my computer to refresh. But I want also to show another thing. Windows, View, and what I'm looking for cache. Debug, Windows, call stack. Okay. And I'm curious. Okay, I heard that. So why it is interesting to see this call stack? Like if you click here, you see what kind of code Acumatica team written in order to execute this, like your code. Like in this case, we see that it was executed in px action run handler. And if you want to dig deeper, you see that Acumatica uses px processing info, get processing info, and run handler. And what Acumatica team used before, px customize action scope. So basically, if you want to wander through Acumatica source code in debugger, you definitely can put a breakpoint. Then I click on F10, and now you can see what happens inside of Acumatica. And you can even try to figure out what information is in those variables. Like this item. Unfortunately, item is empty. But let's see what we have in sort columns. We have order type, order number. So some variables you will be able to see. So that's, for me, sometime when I need to understand why some part of code doesn't work, or some of my team members look why it doesn't work, or kind of expectations, they go through this DnSpy. This is kind of rabbit hole to go, honestly speaking. It's tough because now we are to try executing pending command. But if you have 2 or 3 customizations and you want to know exactly what kind of sequence happens, then with help of DnSpy, you definitely can see what's going on inside. Like you can see that Acumatica uses pipeline runtime. So that's something that you can try on. So this is about DnSpy. And
sorry, Yuriy,
yeah.
before you step forward on this one. How is different from the Visual Studio itself? Because in the Visual Studio, in the debugging, if we have enabled only my code, it goes only through the customization packages that we have. If you don't enable that, it goes into the, we can step into the Acumatica codes and trace there to see where there is going and what is doing. How is different this one?
It is different from standpoint that DnSpy decompiles Acumatica code by itself. And when you go with app data code repository, you will be able to see only the code which Acumatica provided you with. So you will have a bit more information with DnSpy than you have with typical approach.
Okay, sorry. One more question here. So this brings me to the second question here. So apparently, not apparently, we all knew that it's easy to crack the DLLs that we make through the Visual Studio. So what is your suggestion on protecting the source codes in this case? So how we can prevent this from happening, really? I'm looking the otherwise. You are looking to see how we can compile, debug a code, look into the code to see the human eye readable code. So I'm asking the opposite question, how we can protect the source codes. I don't care really about some codes, but there are some codes that maybe it's more valuable to us. We want to protect that. So how do you do that generally yourself?
I forget name of the tool, which like we don't do this often for now, but if we want to protect, I believe we use Confuser. There is DLL, there is project Confuser.
Is the application name that the Confuser? I haven't heard the name.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a kind of application where we can like protect our DLL code to not to debug or not to extract the code by using the Confuser.
Yeah, Confuser X is quite useful. It is not, let's say, if your competitors will try to steal your code, then Confuser X can be kind of broken. Yeah, but if you take into account how small Acumatica community is, it's not like, I believe it will be sufficient. But what kind of problems it will introduce? It will be harder to debug, and your partners will be very unhappy. I mean, your customer will not care, but your partners will come to you and say, hey, once you use this Confuser X, I cannot debug my code. So resolve problems.
Okay, understood. Just I'm curious how it can, just generally speaking, not because of Acumatica. Just I was more curious about it in a broad sense. Mostly.
Yeah. And in the past also we have used this Confuser, but we kind of seeing kind of problems where Acumatica is broken the schedulers and all. So Acumatica suggested not to use the Confuser. So if you're going to use it, then we need to check with Acumatica, like whether it will be, is there any functionalities broken in the Acumatica side, and better to use that.
No, yeah, I understand. And mostly I was curious as sometimes someone asks, hey, can I have this customization package to test it out and see how it works, right? And you want just to give it something to test, and then you don't really want to leave everything open. That's what mostly I was curious about. I understand in the general sense, yeah, we try to be open as we can, right?
Okay.
I can I can add to that more that, like, what is the biggest challenge for any kind of Confuser or some other tools is that it somehow, like, it can modify members of your C# code, especially those which are private. Like what are private, it will be definitely unreadable. Protected members as well. Public will not be modified. But like, honestly, the more complex is your project, the harder it will be to obfuscate. Because, like, as Navin mentioned, we face the same problem. We protect, and then we have a lot of headache because of that protection.
Sorry, I went a little bit to rabbit hole. Sorry for that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So about sequence of event tricks, the most important for me is, or I will make a quiz. How do you think, which is executed first, row selected or row selecting? Give your versions.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Which event is executed first, row selected or row selecting?
Not sure which comes first, but I'm pretty sure row selected comes after row selecting.
Okay, understand. What about row updated? Row updated and row selected, if to compare them.
My understanding is that the eds always come after the ings. Whether the eds come before the ings as well, sometimes I don't know that.
Okay, so what about row updated and row selected? Who goes first? Who goes last?
I guess
Row
selected.
selected will be the first. Updated will be second.
I guess selected runs a couple of times, 4 times, 5 times per event. Some, I guess, if you are going to update something, first selects that, then does the process, then at the end again selects it. I guess beginning and end the same. That's why call runs a couple of times selected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, general idea which Acumatica highlights in documentation, row selected, like if to compare row selected with other events, row selected tend to be executed last one. And why the last one? Because purpose of that event is basically on or off controls on the form. And let's say if row updated have some kind of logic, if you modify something in the cache, you can initiate let's say you can initiate even row selecting again and so on. But if, for example, you initiate cache update in row selected, then you may have situation when you have eternal cycle like Stack Overflow, because so in general row selected is kind of last executed. And Navin, you want to say something? I see you unmuted yourself.
Oh, no, Yuriy.
Okay. And when I started as a Acumatica developer, I was very much confused about base 1, base 2. And why? Because I used to standard C#, and in C# we have base lowercase, like this, which was pointer to base class, and this base for me was confusing. Like, what is why it is capital? So basically, base is a way to point to base graph, and if we create extension for extension, we can get access to we can get access to extension. So that's for me was very big discovery. Then I want to share about this key is contract-based API, is import and is export. Why this stuff is kind of important? Sometimes as developers, we need to make sure that our code works properly when we execute some code through API. For this purpose, we can use is contract-based API. Like this specific key, it helps us to understand that right now our code is executed through contract-based API. And similar keys is import and is export. If you program some logic of your behavior, you may notice that is import, like you can use this key and have some specific logic to be executed when your code runs as in scope of import scenario or export scenario. That's kind of tricky stuff. And sorry, want to come back again to row selected. When we have API calls, events in row selected are not executed. The same is true about import and export scenarios. Why? Because like logic reasoning behind that is that row selected only influence user interface. It shouldn't influence cache. So if you have some kind of reading from database at row selected, which again Acumatica punishes for that, but I've seen plenty of cases when logic works fine in non-import scenario, but once we have import scenario or API call, logic is not executed. Why? Because import-export scenarios as well as API calls, they does not execute row selected. So that's something to keep in mind. And latest for today, 2 folder structure is folders. Again, there are 2 folders, CST designer and CST published. What is purpose of those folders? When I work with customization in customization designer, let's say I have fields. Okay, it's been restarted. So once I work with customization and I make some changes at customization level, then this folder is used, CST designer. But once I published something, then it goes to CST published folder. That's why sometimes I've seen some people who do development who don't want to meddle much with customization designer. They basically do this. They go to CST published folder and make modification of published file here. I don't say you should use it, but just from experience, there are those who like it, there are those who hate it. It's kind of up to you. But here also want to highlight for CST designer, like admin stands for user, which modifies then name of tenant and fields. So that's something to keep in mind. So that's probably all. And it seems like I've been able to squeeze into 45 minutes. I'm open to questions, comments, complaints.
That was great, Yuri. Thank you. A quick question, just can you a little bit explain on the external call of the event handlers? I know typically it means it is an event triggered through other actions or something at the end, or somehow Acumatica internally called it, or you are going to interface and you manipulating something on the interface as a user that calls the event. But can you please a little bit explain on that? So how the external call of the event handlers really work?
Let's try. Let's try. I want to see if I can find some kind of good documentation on it.
Yeah, it doesn't have any hint on that, really. It doesn't have anything inside Acumatica, just I.
You see this hint, returns true if the duck object has been marked as deleted in the UI or through the web service API. So basically, if, but that's it's applicable not only to delete it.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, I'm using unfield updated myself on a project right now. I'm working on that, and it was really helpful. But I want to understand the exact concept of that.
Yes. So, like, basic idea is this: if you modify, like you are a user. Okay. I'm looking field verifying external call. Field verifying. That's a very good question, by the way. And like basic idea is this: imagine that you as a user modify this column description, and in your code you have field updated, which is subscribed to field updated of description. Then external call for field updated for description will be set to
True.
false.
To true.
To true. Yes, it will be set to true. But if in your code you execute, like your field updated executes field updated for, let's say, project field or field updated for external reference, then in field updated of external reference, external call will be or should be false. Why you may need that? Why you may need that? Imagine that you have field updated of description, executes field updated of external reference, and for whatever reason, field updated of external references, reference executes field updated of description. This may happen. Like, let's say here at string level, it doesn't happen, but on sales order details, it happened. Like if quantity was changed, unit price should be recalculated. If unit price should be recalculated, then let's say external price should be recalculated. If external price is recalculated, then unit price should be recalculated, and I don't know, some total should be recalculated. The way how to break this chain is adding of external call. So you add external call into equation, and you see that like who is initiator? Initiator is a description. So it means if external call, then we don't execute description field updated. Does it make sense? Or should I rephrase?
No, that absolutely makes sense. And that was my understanding as well. Just I wanted to make sure I'm not missing something that gonna create problem later.
Hey,
No,
Yuri, I think you're still debugging that screen. I think that's why it's freezing on you.
Could be. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. There's a question, which is preferred? Select, find. Unfortunately, I don't know. In order to find answer, I would write a code with for each opening connection scope, and I would put 10,000 like I would put a loop for 1 to, let's say, 10,000 and make reading in PX connection scope. Like for preference, I don't see any difference. And if I want faster, and I will want to know which one will be faster, I will write for loop in order to find out.
Hey everyone, just as a time check, we're at 5 minutes to the top of the hour. So any quick questions? Ask them now.
You're welcome, Patrick.
Would you be able to provide some more detail on how the base 1, base 2 worked, or perhaps an example how that's used?
Yeah. So basically, base 1 is a pointer to extension. Let me close. So like right now we have, like we say that we have extension for S order entry.
Yes.
But if we want to modify, behavior of some other extension, like Acumatica right now has plenty of extensions itself. For example, there is this guy, BCSO order entry. So let's say we want to modify. I would import this, and let's say I want to meddle with. I want to meddle with, I don't know, configure. Yeah. Let's say I will do. This may be not fully correct code, so just to give you a warning. But overall, I would do like this. Then here I will add attribute px override. And when I say type base, you see, I have access to S order entry. If I have base 1, I have access to this. I believe this is big commerce as order entry. And base 2, if we will have like, extension for extension, like let's say somebody written extension for this, and you want to modify his, then you may use base 2 and so on.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, we should probably go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so
I do
much,
actually
Yuri.
have
Oh,
one.
go ahead, Daryl.
Trying to think how to say this. Hopefully it makes sense. In events. So say you're updating the UI in an event, a row selected. Is there a preferred way to do that? So when I started coding in a row selected, I would use base dot set, sorry. This is gonna be hard to do without any code. Base dot set value x or whatever, and then put the field name. But I was using the base graph in the event, and I realized that you can actually get the graph out of the event args. So like e.cache.graph. Do you know if there's a preference between the two? Is there actually a difference between them?
I would rather use this because like it will not be big difference because anyway it is reference to the memory. So I'm just lazy. I would type this instead of e dot. But
so you would use base dot actions dot save rather than getting the graph out of the event args.
Yeah, but just
Okay.
because I'm lazy.
Sure.
Exception would be if I want to make a kind of multi-threading mechanism, then potentially yes, I would use, like I would say this, if I work on abstract graphs construction, which Acumatica has, yeah, I would definitely go on this mechanism like e.cache.graph. But if I have just graph, I would use even this dot persist or just persist or press save.
Sure. Okay, thank
I'm
you.
lazy.
Okay, everyone, we're at the top of the hour. So thank you everybody for attending and participating today. This was a great session. Thank you, Yuri, so much for your time and expertise here. We will, I should have the recording up in the next couple days up on the site. So anything you missed or wanted to go over and review will be up there for you. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Yuri. And of
Thank
course,
you.
visit Yuri's
Thank you so
blog.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yuri.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Bye.
You
Thanks,
too.
Yuri.
Bye.